Take a look at this guy. This is Claude Vorilhon, the one-time sports journalist and auto racing fan that would later become Raël, the spiritual leader of his own religion called Raëlism, and another New Age messiah and alien messenger who is worshipped by thousands. Now, chances are that you've at least heard of this guy before, because Raëlism is among the most prominent UFO cults ever, claiming tens of thousands of members. And they've been all over TV and the media, and Saturday Night Live used to even have a skit making fun of them. And like Scientology, the Raëlian movement has the funding and resources of a contemporary religion, which seems ironic to some because Raëlism defines itself as an atheistic organization. And I would say that that's the one thing I agree with them about, that atheism is in itself a religion. Raëlism is actually a great example of that. And not only do they consider themselves to be an atheistic organization, but they also claim science to be the method by which they interpret the universe. And Raël is also the proudly perverted mastermind behind such events as Go Topless Day and numerous masturbation advocacy campaigns. And his cult is just obsessed with sex and with the public exhibition of it. And you can't have sex all day without making some babies in the process. And that's why Raëlians are also staunch advocates of abortion. And they promote and contribute to causes like gay pride parades and transgender programs. And they campaign for things like condom vending machines in high schools. And they protest against things like pro-life rallies. And so to put it plainly, Raëlism fits right in with our society, now more than ever. And to the uninitiated mind, the Raëlian movement would seem to be just a bunch of fun-loving, progressive hippies who just want to make love and not war, and happen to believe in aliens. But that's not to say they haven't had their fair share of public notoriety and criticism.
Raël, you may recognize testimony 5 for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for inviting me. I have a request is to include to my text a manifesto signed by 36 top scientists and philosophers of the world from New Humanist Association, including Francis Crick, co-discoverer of the DNA, and numerous Nobel Prize laureates who support the freedom for human cloning as part of freedom of science, be attached to my testimony.
Without objection, it will be included in the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wish to dedicate my testimony to Giordano Bruno, who was burned alive 4 centuries ago, sentenced to the death penalty by the Catholic Church for saying that there was life on other planets. Why did I ask Brigitte Boisselier to create the first human company in America? Because as the country of freedom, you have a constitution which should be a model for the whole world. And the most wonderful jewel of your system, the Supreme Court, which guarantees the respect of your constitution and the freedom of your citizens against your own government and lawmakers. I'm quite confident that even if human cloning was banned, the Supreme Court of America would cancel this law as unconstitutional as they did for IVF.
In 1997, Raël established an organization that he called Clonaid, which engaged in the research and development of human cloning technology. And in 2002, the company claimed to have produced the first human clone, a baby girl named Eve. And yes, this was a direct reference to Eve from Genesis. And yet, despite this controversy, Raëlism continues to grow even to this day. And they're always portrayed by the media to be this innocent group of wacky tinfoil hat-wearing science fiction enthusiasts. But I just want to point out the blatantly blasphemous and satanic foundation of this group's doctrine. And after everything else that we've been through in this video, I think you will understand why. Now, according to the false message of Claude Vorilhon, or I'm sorry, Raël, we are all actually the descendants of alien gods who are known as the Elohim. And of course, this word Elohim is actually a Hebrew name for God that is used throughout the Old Testament. Now, according to the testimony of Raël, this all started in 1973 as he was wandering through some mountains in France when he came across an alien spaceship that was grounded near an inactive volcano. And according to Claude, he was then approached by a 25,000-year-old alien by the name of Yahweh. And of course, the name Yahweh is yet another biblical name for God the Father. And then, in a scene ripped straight from Star Wars, Yahweh goes on to reveal his true identity, proclaiming himself to be Claude's biological father. And this is a revelation that would immediately elevate Vorilhon from a modest sports writer and automobile enthusiast to a biological son of God. And according to Raël, this miraculous encounter would only be the first in an ongoing relationship, which he maintained with his alien dad and his Elohim cousins. And at some point, he was instructed to change his name to Raël. because Claude just is not a fitting name for the Messiah. And in the religion of Raëlism, he is accepted by his followers to be the true Son of God. And as such, his words and writings are regarded as authoritative scripture. And now, in the midst of all this biblical terminology, you might be wondering where Jesus fits into this picture. But unsurprisingly, Raëlism has an answer for that too. You see, as it turns out, Jesus Christ himself was yet another alien prophet sent to earth by the Elohim, along with Moses, Elijah, Ezekiel, Buddha, John the Baptist, Muhammad, and even Joseph Smith. And by the account of Claude Vorilhon, he is the 40th and final prophet of the Elohim. And if you've been paying attention, then you would have noted by now that this use of biblical terminology is really prevalent within these New Age religions. And it's kind of weird because these magicians and sorcerers seem to look at the Bible as if it's another magical oracle and attempting to decipher the scriptures through an occult lens. And by the way, this is what Mystery Babylonian teaching is all about. But I really think that Raëlism takes blasphemy to a whole nother level within the realm of these UFO cults, because the entire philosophy is just a distortion of scriptures that have been cherry-picked directly from the Bible. For example, according to the theology of Raëlism, the Garden of Eden from Genesis 1 is said to be an alien scientific laboratory, probably not too different from Raël's Clonate facility. And instead of Lucifer appearing to Eve and tempting her to eat of the forbidden fruit, according to Raëlism, Lucifer was yet another alien who led a group of scientists in a genetic engineering lab to study this created man's behavior. And the biblical fall of man was actually just the result of Lucifer telling the creation the truth about their existence. And this is a common perspective in Gnostic and occult literature, by the way, to present the character of Lucifer as an empathetic and heroic figure. And then Raël goes on to teach that Noah's Ark was actually a giant spaceship that was lifted up above Earth and used to preserve and store the genetic material that was later used to resurrect animals through cloning. Raëlians do acknowledge the occurrence of the Great Flood, but they explain it to be the byproduct of an atomic missile explosion that the alien Elohim sent. And Raëlians even have their own disturbing version of the biblical end times, one in which the third temple described in Revelation must be built in or near Jerusalem. But unlike the biblical interpretation of this prophecy, where the construction of this third temple ushers in the arrival of the Antichrist, for Raëlians, the third temple will invite the arrival of, you guessed it, the Elohim aliens in their spaceships. And in case you're thinking that this stuff has fizzled out, then think again, as Raëlians have reported making great progress in their pursuits as recently as 2022. And if you've been following my channel long enough, you know that the Raëlians are not alone in this pursuit of building the third temple. And by the way, in case you disagree with my narrative of sci-fi entertainment being the primary catalyst and influence behind the emergence of these UFO cults, then I would like to point out this Benny Hinn-like outfit that Raël is always wearing. It's like a Halloween costume that was designed to reflect all of the corniest and most cliche elements of science fiction. Of course, he's wearing his famous Raëlian pendant that features a swastika enclosed in the six-pointed star, and then this hair thing. I mean, you guys, come on. Why would he do this with his hair, if not to impersonate some generic villain from the show Star Trek? I'm kidding, but I'm also serious. These origin stories, they're all just as fantastical and cliche as Hubbard's infamous space operas. And the names of these alien gods, Xenu, Orthon, Aetherius, it's enough to make you feel as if you're watching Mystery Science Theater 3000.
On the planet Semar, far within the Mufin galaxy, a decontrolled robot assassinated the omnipotent Balazar, who is known to possess the most brilliant mind in the universe. So powerful was Balazar's genius that as he lay dying, his brain ordered built a mechanism which would keep it alive even though his body was destroyed. And now Balazar's brain seeks universal conquest. The Council now is deciding what must be done.